set a timer, and I'm still not happy with the way this looks yet. Hi guys, this is Connie, and I have a little bit more time in this moment, so I'm going to continue on with Connie Reads Chapter 3 of Another Fine Myth. Woohoo! So, Chapter 3. The only thing more reliable than magic is one's friends. An excerpt from Macbeth. Ahaz scowled and repeated the gesture, a bit quicker this time. The scene remained unchanged. I decided something was wrong. Is something wrong? I asked politely. You better believe there's something wrong, Ahaz snarled. It's not working. Are you sure you're doing it right? Yes, I'm sure I'm doing it right. It's just like I've been sure the last 50 times I did it. He was starting to sound annoyed. Can you... Look, kid, if I knew what was wrong, I'd have fixed it already. Now just shut up and let me think. He sank down to sit cross-legged in the center of the pentagram, where he began sketching vague patterns in the floor as he mumbled darkly to himself. I wasn't sure if he was trying some alternate incantation or was simply thinking hard, but decided it would be unwise to ask. Instead, I used the time to organize my scrambled thoughts. I wasn't sure if Ahaz was a threat to me or if he was my only possible salvation from a greater threat. I mean, by this time, I was pretty sure he was kidding about ripping my heart out, but that's the sort of thing one wants to be very sure of. One thing I had learned for certain, there was more to this magic stuff than floating feathers around. That's got to be it. Ahaz was on his feet again, glaring at Garkin's body. That ill-begot son of a wombat. What's a wombat? I asked, then immediately wished I hadn't. The mental image that sprang into my mind was so horrifying, I was sure I didn't want details. I needn't have worried. Ahaz was not about to take time to answer me. Well, it's a pretty crummy joke, that's all I have to say. What are you talking about, Ahaz? I'm talking about Garkin. He did this to me. If I thought it would go this far, I would have turned him into a goatfish when I had the chance. Ahaz, I still don't... I stopped. He had ceased his ranting and was looking at me. I shrank back reflexively before I recognized the snarl as his smile. I liked it better when he was raving. I'm sorry, Skeeve, he purred. I guess I haven't been very clear. I was growing more uneasy by the minute. I wasn't used to having people, much less demons, being nice to me. That's okay. I was just wondering. You see, the situation is this. Garkin and I have been playing little jokes on each other for some time now. It started one time when we were drinking, and he stiffed me with the bill. Well, the next time I summoned him, I brought him in over a lake, and he had to do this demon act armpit deep in water. He got even by, well, I won't bother you with the details, but we've gotten in the habit of putting each other in awkward or embarrassing situations, which is really very childish, but quite harmless. But this time, Oz's eyes started to narrow. But this time, the old frog kisser's gone too... it seems to have gotten a little out of hand. Don't you agree? He bared his fangs at me again in a smile. I wanted very badly to agree with him, but I didn't have the foggiest idea what he was talking about. You still haven't told me what's wrong. What's wrong is that the stinking slime monger took away my powers, he roared, forgetting his composure. I'm blocked. I can't do a flaming thing unless he removes his stupid prankish spell, and he can't 'cause he's dead. Now do you understand me, flybait? I made up my mind. Savior or not, I'd rather he went back where he came from. Well, if there's anything I could do... There is Skeeve, my boy. Ahaz was suddenly all purrs and teeth again. All you have to do is fire up the old cauldron or whatever and remove this spell, and then we can go our separate ways, and I can't do that. Okay, kid. His smile was a little more forced. I'll stick around until you're on your feet. What are friends for? That's not it. What do you want? Blood? Ahaz was no longer smiling. If you're trying to hold me up, you don't understand, I interrupted desperately. I can't do it because I can't do it. I don't know how. That stopped him. That could be a problem. Well, tell you what, instead of pulling the spell here, what say you just pop me back to my own dimension and I'll get some there to take it off. I can't do that either, remember? I told you, I'd never even heard of. Well, what can you do? I can levitate objects, well, small objects. And, he encouraged, and, I can light a candle. Light a candle? Well, almost. Ahaz sank heavily into a chair and hid his face in his hands for several minutes. I waited for him to think of something. Kid, have you got anything in this dump to drink? He asked finally. I'll get you some water. I said something to drink, not something to wash in. Oh, yes, sir. I hastened to bring him a goblet of wine from the small keg Garkin kept, hoping he wouldn't notice the vessel wasn't particularly clean. What will this do? Will it help you put your powers back? No, but it might make me feel a little better. He tossed the wine down in one swallow and studied the goblet disdainfully. Is this the biggest container you've got? I cast about the room desperately, but Ahaz was way ahead of me. He rose, strode into the pentagram, and picked up the brazier. I knew from past experience it was deceptively heavy, but he carried it to the keg as if it were weightless. Not bothering to empty out Garkin's concoction, he filled it to the brim and took a deep draught. Ah, that's better, he sighed. I felt a little queasy. Well, kid, he said, sweeping me with an appraising stare. It looks like we're stuck with each other. The setup isn't ideal, but that's what we've got. Time to bite the bullet and play the cards we're dealt. You know what cards are, don't you? Of course, I said, slightly wounded. Good. What's a bullet? Ahaz closed his eyes as if struggling against some inner turmoil. Kid, he said at last, there's a good chance this partnership is going to drive one of us crazy. I would guess it will be me, unless you can knock off the dumb questions every other sentence. Yeah. But I can't understand half of what you're saying. Tell you what, try to save up the questions and ask me all at one time, once a day, okay? I'll try. Right. Now, here's the situation as I see it. If Istvan is hiring imps for assassins, what's an imp? Kid, will you give me a break? I'm sorry, Ahaz. Keep going. Right. Well, it's happening. He made his appeal to the heavens. I can't remember what I was saying. Imps, I prompted. Oh, right. Well, if he's hiring imps and arming them with non-spec weapons, it can only mean he's up to his old tricks. Now, since I don't have my powers, I can't get out of here to sound the alarm. That's where you come in, kid. Kid? He was looking at me expectantly. I found I could contain my misery no longer. I'm sorry, Ahaz, I said in a small, pitiful voice I hardly recognized as my own. I don't understand a single thing you've said. I suddenly realized I was about to cry, and turned away hurriedly so he wouldn't see. I sat there with tears trickling down my cheeks, alternatively fighting the urge to wipe them away and wonder why I was concerned over whether or not a demon saw me crying. I don't know how long I stayed that way, but I was brought back to reality by a gentle hand on my shoulder, a cold, gentle hand. Hey kid, don't beat on yourself, Ahaz's voice was surprisingly sympathetic. It's not your fault if Garkin was tight with his secrets. Nobody expects you to have learned something you were never taught, so there's no reason you should expect it either. I just feel so stupid, I said, not turning. I'm not used to feeling stupid. You aren't stupid, kid. That much I know. Garkin wouldn't have taken you for an apprentice if you were stupid. If anyone here's stupid, it's me. I got so carried away with the situation, I forgot myself and tried talking to an apprentice as if he were a full-blown magician. Now that's stupid. I couldn't bring myself to respond. I still couldn't bring myself to respond. Heck, kid, he gave my shoulder a gentle shake. Right now, you can do more magic than I can. But you know more. But I can't use it. You know, kid, that gives me an idea. With old Garkin dead there, you're kind of cut off. What say you sign on as my apprentice for a while? We'll take it from the top with me teaching you as if you were a new student who didn't know a thing. We'll take it step by step from the beginning. What do you say? In spite of my gloom, I felt my spirits lift. Like he said, I'm not stupid. I could recognize a golden opportunity when I saw one. Gee, that sounds great, Ahaz. Then it's a deal? It's a deal, I answered and stuck out my hand. What's that? He snarled. Isn't my word good enough for you? But you said, that's right, you're my apprentice now, and I don't go around shaking apprentices' hands. I withdrew my hand. It occurred to me his alliance might not be all roses and songs. Now, as I was saying, here's what we've got to do about the current situation. But I haven't had any lessons yet. That's right, here's your first lesson. When a crisis shapes up, you don't waste energy wishing for information or skills you haven't got. You dig in and handle it as best as you can with what you've got. Now shut up while I fill you in on the situation. Apprentice. I shut up and listened. He studied me for a moment, then gave a small satisfied nod, took another gulp from the brazier, and began. Now, you have a vague idea about other dimensions because I told you about them earlier. You also have first-hand experiences that magicians can open passages into the barriers between those dimensions. Well, different magicians use that power in different ways. Some of them, like Garkin, only use it to impress the yokels, summon a demon, visions of other worlds, that kind of shtick. But there are others whose motives are not so pure. He paused to take another gulp of wine. Surprisingly, I felt no urge to interrupt with questions. Technology in different dimensions has progressed at different rates, as has magic. Some magicians use this to their own advantage. They aren't showmen, they are smugglers, buying and selling technology across the barriers for profit and power. Most of the inventors in any dimension are actually closet magicians. I must have frowned without realizing it, but Ahaz noted it and acknowledged it with a wink and a smirk. I know what you're thinking, Skeeve. It all sounds a little dishonest and unscrupulous. Actually, they're a fairly ethical bunch. There's a set of unwritten rules called the Smuggler's Code they adhere to pretty closely. Smuggler's Code? I asked, forgetting myself for a moment. Ahaz didn't seem to mind this time. It's kind of like a mercenary's code, but less violent and more profitable. Anyway, as an example, one item in that code states, you cannot bring an invention into the dimension that is too far in advance of that dimension's technology, like bringing guided missiles into a longbow culture or lasers into a flint and powder era. I kept my silence with great difficulty. As I've said, most magicians adhere to the code fairly closely, but once in a while, a bad one crops up. That brings us to Istvan. I got a sudden chill at the sound of that name. Maybe there was something different in the way Ahaz pronounced it. Some say Istvan isn't playing with a full deck. I think he's been playing with his wand too much. But whatever the reason, somewhere he's gotten into his head he wants to rule the dimensions. All of them. He's tried it before, but we got wind of it in time, and a bunch of us teamed up to teach him a lesson in manners. As a matter of fact, that's when I first met Garkin there. He gestured with the brazier and slopped a bit of wine on the floor. I began to doubt his sobriety, but his voice seemed steady enough as he continued. I thought he had given the thing up after his last drubbing. We even gave him a few souvenirs to be sure he didn't forget. Then this thing pops up. If he's hiring cross-dimension help and arming them with advanced technology weapons, he's probably trying to do it again. Do what? I just told you, take over the dimensions. I know, but how? I mean, how does what he does in this dimension help him rule the others? Oh, that. Well, each dimension has a certain amount of power that can be channeled or converted into magic. Different dimensions have different amounts of each dimension's power. Different dimensions have different amounts. And each dimension's power is divided up or shared by the magicians of that dimension. If he can succeed in controlling or killing the other magicians in this dimension, he can use its entire magical energy to attack another dimension. If he succeeds in winning there, he has the power from 2 dimensions to attack a third, and so on. As you see, the longer he keeps his plot moving, the stronger he gets and the harder he'll be to stop. I understand now, I said, genuinely pleased and enthusiastic. Good. Then you understand why we've got to stop him. I stopped being pleased and enthusiastic. We? You mean us? You and me? I know it's not much of a force, kid, but like I said, it's all we've got. I think I'd like a little of that wine now. None of that, kid. You're in training now. You're going to need all the practice time you can get if we're going to stop Istvan. Bonkers or not, he's no slouch when it comes to magic. Ahaz, I said slowly, not looking up. Tell me the truth. Do you think there's a chance you can teach me enough magic that we'll have a chance of stopping him? Of course, kid. I wouldn't even try if we didn't have a chance. Trust me. I wasn't convinced, and from the sound of his voice, neither was he. And that's the end of chapter 3. Be careful with that, enjoy, please, and thank you.